And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Okay, tonight's weather showing low pressure sliding southward. They're taking itself out of the picture here. And areas of showers, maybe some light rain there from southern Cook Inlet up along the Kenai Peninsula into western Prince William Sound. And then diminishing showers and thunderstorms here over the central and southern interior areas, where that'll be where the most of the clouds are, obviously, and then dry conditions to the north. And pretty quiet weather pattern out over the Bering Sea, especially the Aleutians. This system pushing up, staying to the south of the Panhandle, but it'll spread a little bit of moisture up into the southern areas. That'll continue into tomorrow with showers and cooler temperatures down that area, drier and a little warmer up to the north. And again, developing showers and thunderstorms over the interior in the afternoon, south of the upper Yukon, Koyukuk, and Kobuk Valley areas. A nice day up there. A little cooler Seward Peninsula, some showers developing tomorrow and what you saw today. And dry for the Arctic coast and North Slope, and storm-free out over the Bering Sea until Wednesday, when the system starts to kick the winds up and bring some rain into the far western Aleutians. Otherwise, a real quiet pattern here over the central and eastern Bering Sea with high pressure here ridging up along the southwest coast, drying it out, keeping the winds light, and an area of rain moving westward here across the from the Copper River Basin across the Manuska-Susitna Valley areas up to about the Alaska Range into the northern Kuskokwim Valley. But southern Cook Inlet, southern Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak Island could see some sunshine. And for the coastal water forecast, west to northwest winds along the south coast of the Panhandle tomorrow at about 20 knots. And west-northwest on the central coast at 15 knots, and west to south winds at 15 knots on the north coast with sea 7 to 8 feet. North winds 15 knots for Lynn Canal, for Stevens Passage and Clarence Strait. Northwest winds 15 knots. And then for Wednesday, south winds 20 knots for all of the inside channels, with seas at about 4 feet. And on the south coast, south winds 15 to 20 knots, south to southwest winds 15 knots for the central coast, and up to the north, winds south to southeast at 15 knots. And for Prince William Sound and the North Gulf Coast tomorrow, variable winds at 10 knots. Also for the Barren Islands and Kamishak Bay, variable winds at 10 knots. And for Cook Inlet, afternoon breeze from the south and southwest at 10 knots. Then for Wednesday, Cook Inlet, south to southwest winds 15 knots, light variable winds for the Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay, and much of the North Gulf Coast at 10 knots. Give a direction there for Prince William Sound. South winds 10 knots, seas only 2 feet. Kodiak Island, northeasterlies at 20 knots tomorrow, 5 to 7 foot seas there. And north to northeast winds at 15 to 20 knots for the Alaska Peninsula with seas running 3 to 8 feet, or 3 to 6 feet, excuse me, and then northeast at 10 knots for Bristol Bay. Outlook for Wednesday, Bristol Bay southwest at 10 knots. And variable winds 10 to 15 knots for the Alaska Peninsula, and variable winds at 10 knots for Kodiak Island. For the eastern Aleutians, central and eastern Aleutians tomorrow, northwest winds 20 knots from Atka to Unalaska. And then for the western Aleutians, variable to southwest winds 10 to 15 knots. Then for Wednesday, that next front coming in, kicking the winds up, small craft advisories here, west of Adak, 20 to 30 knots out of the southeast and easterly direction there. Adak and Atka, south winds 15 knots, and northwest 15 for Unalaska Island. And for the Kuskokwim Delta Coast, northwest winds at 10 knots, west at 20 for the Yukon Delta Coast, Norton Sound, southwest at 10, northwest 15 for St. Lawrence Island, west 15 for St. Matthew Island, and northwest maybe 20 knots there, could be less for the Pribilof Islands. And then for Wednesday, south winds 15 knots for St. Paul, St. George, and St. Matthew Islands. Norton Sound, Yukon Delta Coast, St. Lawrence Island, and actually all of the southwest coast here, looking at west winds at 15 knots. Up along the Arctic coast, central and east side here, easterly winds at 20 knots. Small craft advisories for the western Arctic coast. East to northeast winds 25 to 30 knots. And west winds 25 knots for the Chukchi Sea. And for Wednesday, Chukchi Sea, much lighter winds, north or west-northwest at 10 knots. Central and eastern Arctic, central and western Arctic coast, winds will be east at 20 knots. Eastern Boulevard Sea coast, east winds at about 15 knots.